Let's go to David in London, England. Welcome to the Line of Fire.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about Isaiah 53.
Yes, sir.
Is it like, if I want to re-listen, because you might have some good answers and stuff, is it possible, is there a recording at all that would be available?
Oh, yes, sir. On our website, thelineoffire.org.
Okay, that's fine. I can check after. So, okay. Well, I want to
yeah,
ask
if you just click on listen, a couple hours after the show's over, that'll take you right to today's archives.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So I wanted to ask you, there's a few verses which sort of caught my eye, I guess. I did hear one of your talks, and I think you said that there are some points where it's talking about Israel, and there's some points where it's talking about an individual, just like how you can have like a team leader or something, and then like with a sports team, there might be the main team, and then you've got the wrong person who carries it for the team.
Yeah, just to clarify that, that is talking about how the word eved, servant, is used beginning in Isaiah 41 up through Isaiah 54:17, where there are references to the servant or servants of the Lord. And sometimes in that context, it's explicit. Israel is the servant. Jacob, Israel is the servant, and often a blind and deaf and non-responsive servant. And then there is an individual within Israel who is one called to regather the people of Israel and one called to be a light to the nations. And by the time we get to Isaiah 52:13 to 53:12, that is the focus. One individual, a righteous servant who dies for the sins of the nation, and yet his own people misunderstand him. So I don't see Isaiah 52:13 to 53:12 speaking about Israel and the Messiah. I see it just speaking about the Messiah.
Okay, so is it the case is it everything before Isaiah 52:12? If I can make up the first one, is it everything from after that bit? So you're saying it was? I'll just jot down the verses you mentioned. So Isaiah 52:13, yeah, to 53:12. Right?
Yes, that all Israel, and before that, for example, in chapter 41, Israel is expressly referred to as God's servant. In Isaiah 42, the servant is called to be a light to the nations, and there's some ancient rabbinic commentators who recognize that servant as being the Messiah. In Isaiah 49...
I mean, if that's the case, then yeah. I guess it sounds like most of the time it's talking about the nation of Israel, and then there's this one little portion which you're saying is talking about an individual.
Oh, no, quite the contrary, sir. You have quite a few passages speaking about the individual. In fact, they're some of the lengthiest ones. Isaiah 42, which, as I said, if you look, for example, at the Targum or Radak, Rabbi David Kimche, they understand that to be referring to King Messiah. If you look in chapter 49, beginning in verse 1, there's an extended passage where Rashi and others believe it's talking about the prophet, and others interpret it as the Messiah. And his mission, even though he's called Israel, his mission is to regather Israel. In the 50th chapter, and again, look at the rabbinic commentaries, they explicitly say it's speaking about an individual. So over and over and over, we have extended passages speaking about the servant of the Lord as an individual and specifically as the Messiah. So
okay,
it's hard.
The thing is, the rabbinic commentaries have all sorts of things. So is it possible to look at it without the rabbinic commentaries and still come to that conclusion with a good certainty?
Yes, sir. In fact, it's the logical conclusion. I only cite the rabbinic commentaries for the sake of religious Jews who say, well, you're just reading that into the text. And I say, no. Rabbinic Jews who differ with my interpretation of the text and who don't believe this applies to Jesus also recognize this regarding an individual. So, for example,
I think that's actually when you've debated religious Jews and stuff, to bring that argument about what the rabbinic text and stuff, I think it actually weakens your argument because if one either sort of accepts the rabbinic text or one doesn't, and if one does, then one would have to accept that the rabbis don't believe that it's Jesus, and the rabbis in the rabbinic text will believe all sorts of things.
Oh, no, not at all, sir. That's I appreciate the point, but it's quite illogical. Let's say, for example, that the Palestinian Authority says we recognize ISIS as terrorists, okay? And if I say, hey, look, I'm not the only one who thinks ISIS is terrorist, The Palestinian Authority recognizes them as terrorists, and they firmly stand against many things in Israel. We do that all the time. We always quote people who differ with us when they have a similar view on something to say, hey, look, I'm not the only one saying this. For example, in Israel today...
It's still a terrible... I mean, some people might make that argument. It's a terrible argument. I would even say the Palestinian Authority have no moral backbone, and if they say somebody's a terrorist, it's completely irrelevant.
All right, but sir, a rabbinic Jew respects the Jewish commentaries. I respect their scholarship. I respect their scholarship. David, hang on. I respect their scholarship, even though I differ with them. But here's the point: if someone says to me, David, if someone says to me, all Jews know the servant of the Lord is Israel in these passages, it's universally interpreted. I say that's totally false. Here's evidence from within Jewish commentaries that say that that's false. That's perfectly legitimate, sir. I guess that would be correct in that context. Right. So let's look, for example, in Isaiah 49, where it says this: the servant of the Lord speaking. All right. I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for nothing in futility. Yet my vindication is with the Lord, and my reward is with my God. And now says the Lord, who formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him, so that Israel might be gathered to him, for I am honored in the sight of the Lord. My God is my strength. He says, it is not enough for you to be my servant, raising up the tribes of Jacob and restoring the protected ones of Israel. I will also make you a light for the nations, to be my salvation to the ends of the earth. That is obviously not Israel. That is an individual within Israel.
Okay, I mean, there's probably like a lot of passages, I guess, in Isaiah. So is there anywhere I can see a list of all the passages in question besides just Isaiah 53?
Well, surely in volume 3 of my series, Answering Jewish Objections to Jesus, I treat all of them exhaustively. I go through every reference to the servant there. And if you're unable to get that volume, you can just email our website for the specifics, and we'll gladly send them to you.
Okay, thanks. There were I did look at 3 different verses, and they were kind of puzzled me a little bit. But let's see. One of them was Isaiah 53, verse 8. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a funny one because I was looking at one of Tovia Singer's articles on it. And the verse says, by restraint and by judgment he has been taken, and of his generation who doth meditate. Maybe I'm looking at a funny... this is the YLT, the Young's Literal Translation, or whatever. That he has been cut off from the land of the living. By the transgression of my people he is plagued. Now, the interesting thing was, on Tovia's article, it said that at the end of that verse, it says they are plagued. And now the Hebrew word here is lamo.
Mm-hmm.
Or the Hebrew is nega lamo. So
smitten for them.
To him, right?
Yeah,
and that's what most of the translations say, which would disagree with what Tovia Singer had written. But there's a funny thing. I checked in Bible Works, which has so it's got all the morphological codes.
Yep. I've got it right on my screen right here. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess it's a Groves Wheeler or codes or whatever. But it says, looking at this, it says for Lamor, it says PP, but the first one's a capital P, so it's a particle. And then the little p is a preposition, doesn't really matter. Then it's got the suffix, it says 3MP, so it's third person masculine plural, which would actually agree with what Tovia Singer had said to them. So that's
so that's really, really easy. I mean, these have been answered decades ago. It's actually a shame that Tovia still raises them. Number one, the passage is saying that the servant of the Lord was smitten for them, mi pesha ami, for the transgression of my people, nega, smitten, or stroke, lamo, for them. Okay? So that's what it's saying, that the servant of the Lord suffered for them. That's exactly what it says. So it's a gross misinterpretation of the text. Otherwise,
hang on, but
not only that though, but Isaiah actually uses lamo to mean for him or to it. Isaiah 44:15, and it says this explicitly that a man makes an idol. All right, he makes a pesel. All right, and vayis God lamo, and he bows down to it. So even on the other interpretation, David, lamo can mean to it, for it. There's, again, no argument in terms of the usage in Isaiah 44, 15, and the New Jewish Translation, New Jewish Publication Translation says, fashions an idol and bows down to it, singular. So lamo can mean to it, for him, to him. But Isaiah 53:8, I don't believe that's what it's saying, that the Messiah is suffering lamo for them, for the people. Stay right there. Thanks for joining us on this Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. This is Michael Brown, having an extended conversation with David from London, asking questions about the Hebrew text of Isaiah 52:13 to 53:12. I've got an entire talk on our YouTube channel about this. In fact, if you just go to our digital library, go to thelineoffire.org, click on Digital Library and click on Isaiah 53. I have a whole lecture just on the subject that I think you'll find really eye-opening. Also, for those who understand Hebrew, for David, where it says the end of Isaiah 53:8, Mi pesha mi nega lamo, so the way I would understand it, for the stroke of my people, for the transgression of my people, a stroke. In other words, he's smitten, lamo, for them. I don't read it like that. It's also possible to read it, lamo, meaning for him, as in Isaiah 44:15. But it's interesting that Dead Sea Scrolls there seem to read nuga, which would suggest a passive form, hence mi pesha ami, for the transgression of my people, nuga, smitten, lamo, for them. But there's some debate and dispute about that. All right, David, we got limited time, but let's try to get to any other verses that have troubled you.
Okay, thanks. So another one is verse 10, Isaiah 53, verse 10.
Yep.
It says, he shall see his offspring. Mm-hmm. Now, Jesus didn't see his offspring, so I'm just wondering how you interpret that one.
Yeah, again, these are standard questions that have been raised for many years. There are a couple of answers. On rare occasions, zerah, seed, is used in a spiritual sense and in Scripture, and it could be speaking of a spiritual offspring. But elsewhere, if you look, for example, at the end of Psalm 22, zerah, seed, just speaks of a future generation. So in that sense, the Jesus movement, the movement that he birthed through his death and resurrection, has gone on now for 2 millennia. And there have been multiple generations of disciples of
Isn't it more like his father sees it rather than him?
No. He by being raised from the dead, he continues on. By being raised from the dead, he lives on. This explains how he can die and yet live on and see future generations.
So you would say that Jesus doesn't exist in a body anymore, but he exists in a spiritual realm alongside the Father.
Well, he exists in a glorified body. He has been supernaturally raised up in a glorified body, as we expect that we will be as his followers in the future. Okay. But in a very real way, he continues and he sees the future generations. And that's, again, I treat all these in Volume 3 in some depth. And I'm thrilled that you're asking the questions. These are ones, of course, that have been well asked and well answered. And you can dig in deeper. We'll make sure we get you what you need to dig in deeper to help you in your research. One other one was
yes, 53 verse 11.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think I'm looking at 2 translations. One's the NIV and the other one's the RSV.
Yep.
I'm just wondering if you think the NIV is reading a little bit in here. Because the RSV just says, he shall see the fruit of the travail of his soul and be satisfied. Whereas the NIV says, after he has suffered, he will see the light of life and be satisfied.
Light of life, that's based on the Dead Sea Scrolls. In other words, the Dead Sea Scrolls adds that. And that's why, so one of the earliest texts we have has that addition. Now, that's the Isaiah A scroll, not the Isaiah B scroll. The Isaiah B scroll is almost identical to the Hebrew text we have today, virtually letter for letter. The Isaiah A scroll is a bit more expansive. So the NIV is simply following the reading of the Dead Sea Scrolls and understanding this concept of seeing light, seeing the light of life. But yeah, so it should say so in a footnote, which if you're using, say, BibleWorks, if you scroll over to NIV, okay, scroll over to NIV and then or just go over to that verse and look at notes or analysis. Yeah, let's see. NIV, here we go. Dead Sea Scrolls, see also Septuagint, Masoretic text does not have light of life. So because the Dead Sea Scrolls have it, and because the Septuagint goes in that direction. The Lord also is pleased to take away from the travail of his soul to show him light. So it's saying that perhaps is what the original Hebrew text read, and it just got shortened somehow in the Masoretic text that the other translations draw from. That's just a textual issue of ancient manuscripts. It's not the NIV trying to read something extra
That's
in.
Very interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, yes, sir. Hey, listen, David, if we can be of help to you, let us know. I do appreciate you calling all the way over from England. And again, if you need references, lists of anything, just write through the website, and you'll get a response from a Jewish ministry assistant of mine. If we need to send you excerpts from my book, if you're unable to get it or don't want to invest in the ebook, we'll gladly do that. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
You are very welcome, sir.